What are the 3 things we learned this spring? I'm going to tell you right here, right now. Also, as a bonus at the end of the video, what are the 3 biggest question marks for the Huskers going forward? Let's light this candle, shall we? Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Also, the inaugural Carriker Chronicles football camp. Learn more and/or register at carrikerchronicles.com. The camp that is for the kids. Again, coaches feature Eric Crouch, Amon Green, Zach Weger, Kenny Wilhite, and yours truly. Hopefully the kids have a blast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're like me, and you like at least some, if not a lot, but at least some of the offseason moves that have been made coaching-wise, personnel-wise, etc., from head coach Matt Rhule, then smash that like button. As always, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe and/or ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of the stuff we're putting out here on the Carriker Chronicles. And frankly, it helps us, and we appreciate that. Every Tuesday going forward until August, we will continue to do Carriker Chronicles weekly as well. All right, the top 3 things that we learned during Nebraska Spring Football. It was tough with no spring game. Okay, and you're allowed to go to practice occasionally as members of the media, as former players. There's other ways you can go to practice and whatnot. It was tougher to learn things this spring than most springs, but that's okay. Because there are some things that I do believe we learned, and some of them are very, very important. The one that stood out to me the most, this was very consistent across the board. Dylan Raiola has taken a true leadership role on the team this year. Now, it was mentioned last year he's a true freshman, he's a teenager. It was a senior-laden team last year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So, hey, I knew his teammates still liked him. Whenever I interviewed offensive players last year, man, Dylan was always brought up inadvertently or directly, and they always had positive things to say, and genuinely so. Going into this year, Matt Rhule wanted him to make this his offense, his receiving core, his team. And he's taken a huge role, especially on the offensive side of things, and being a leader for Nebraska football going into this season as well. Going around in the offseason. Now, some people like this, some people don't. But going around in the offseason, going to all the high school basketball games, going to Lincoln Stars hockey games, going to the Crown Tournament, supporting the basketball team, the Nebraska men's basketball team in the Crown Tournament championship game. Even at the Husker games. He hopped in with the women's flag football game and had some fun there. At the end of the Husker games, you could tell throughout he's taken a leadership role if you just pay attention to how teammates interact with him. At the end, he grabbed the mic. He was the guy that spoke to the fans that were in attendance there. I will say this, he had that trick shot that a lot of people saw through the football, through the basketball hoop. What was it, 40, 50 yards away or whatever. I'm pretty sure about a month ago, I saw a TikTok of him, Harburg, I think Harper Murray was there as well. They're at a basketball court, I think at night, and they're on the opposite end, like at some sort of big playground. And Dylan did it that night. In this TikTok, I'm pretty sure I saw. And then Harburg did it as well. So, I don't know. Still an amazing shot, though. It's interesting because I remember when I first got to Nebraska, you had to be a senior in order to be a captain. Now, that's been long since changed. But that was that way for decades under Osborne and Solich. That's long since been changed. The game of football is very, very different than it's ever been. Guys are playing younger than they ever used to. Guys don't redshirt as much as they used to. So guys can take on leadership roles much, much earlier. But it was interesting because it brought me back to my rookie year with the Rams. We're in the preseason out at Oakland playing the Raiders at that wonderfully terrible field. We're in the locker room, which wasn't a whole lot better, and I'm getting ready. And I'm pretty nervous. My second preseason game ever. My first one was up at Minnesota. And Isaac Bruce, who never talks, okay, Super Bowl champ, Hall of Famer, comes over. He goes, "Hey, Rook, you can take more of a leadership role, and just walked away. And I was like, whoa. I really didn't expect that, especially in the preseason, but I love seeing what we've seen from Dylan so far from a leadership perspective especially. Now, here's some of the things we've heard in press conferences from coaches, from players, just people talking all the way back to the National Signing Day press conference that Rhule held in December. We've heard certain things like the offensive line has been one of the highlights of the spring. We're going to have one of the best defensive lines around. Defensive backs have called our wide receiver group elite. Okay, we've heard that when it comes to the running back room, we don't need to do much with that room. All right, some of this I'm quoting, some of this I'm paraphrasing. Matt Rhule has talked about, we're going to take a year 3 jump. He said that multiple times. He said, this is the team I've been waiting for. Now, to be clear, he was talking about the physicality approach, about Emmett Johnson, Dane Key, guys who have a lot to lose if they get hurt, saying, no, let's turn this drill into a tackling drill. Let's make this a more physical drill. And he's like, this is the team I've been waiting for when it comes to physicality in that aspect of the game. John Butler at one point said, the physicality has been elite. Okay, he said that in one of his press conferences. When you think about Heinrich Haarberg specifically, Holgorsen, because he's absolutely one of the best athletes on the team, size, speed, explosiveness, etc., just being a football player as well and wanting to make an impact on the field, help his team. But Dana Holgorsen has called him, and I quote, a work in progress, end quote, and also he's really going to help us, end quote, which is a little bit of two different meanings there, but I think he's saying he's got a really high ceiling. So where he's a work in progress to get to that ceiling, but in the meantime, and as he gets towards that ceiling, he's really, really going to help us. Now, just a reminder, he does have the best top-end speed of anybody on the team. Dawson Merritt, who missed some time this spring, is number 2. Now, they did do a 40-yard dash smoke show, fastest man show at the Husker games, which I talked about in my gut reaction on Saturday. But I'm going to get to Willis McGahee, who finished either second or third. Ja'Cory Barty won it, and either Heinrich was second or Willis McGahee was second, and the other one was third. Okay, but in a 40-yard dash, the top-end speed, it's a little bit shorter of a race. Okay, a true top-end speed might be 50, 60, 70, 80 yards or whatever. But Haarberg is still really fast in that type of scenario. Just an athlete. All right. I do know things they're interested in real quickly before I get back to some of the things that we've heard this offseason. I do know they're interested. A punter. Obviously, we need a rugby-style punter. Something tells me they have a plan for that. Something just tells me they have a plan for a rugby-style punter to come in. All right, potentially some edge rushers and defensive line as well. We'll see what happens along these fronts if they do or don't bring guys in. We've also heard when it comes to the coverages, because in the secondary last year, it was some inconsistencies, and they want to install more NFL-style coverages when it comes to third downs and when it comes to red zone situations specifically. Now, when I asked Prince Amukamara about this, if you watch that interview, Prince, especially in the red zone, said, and he hasn't asked Butler, but he's just like, that probably means more match zones in the red zone. Those are more NFL-style coverages and things of that nature. We've also heard when it comes to the linebacker core, which is absurdly talented, I'm going to get to them in a minute, absurdly talented, but young. It's still a work in progress when it comes to their pass coverages and them getting better and better at those things, but that comes with youth. They've got plenty of athleticism there. All right. Real quick, before I get to number 2, the second thing I believe we learned this spring, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, DPS Concrete Construction. As always, check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Concrete, they're the folks to do it. Retaining wall work, they're the folks to do it. If this is the type of work you want done or the type of work that you do, go to dpsconstruction.net, ask for Jason Armstrong, tell him that Adam sent you his way. Also, Husker Auto Group, check them out at huskerautomotive.com. Husker Auto Group Blitz package is on. Come visit Husker GMC Business Elite for your small business commercial fleet vehicle needs. Husker Auto Group has the vehicle you need. Half tons, 3/4 tons, 1 tons, medium duty trucks to choose from today. As always, Husker GMC offers the complete Blitz package. Located conveniently off I-80 and North 27th Street in Lincoln, HuskerAutomotive.com. And if you watched my gut reaction on Saturday, I did it from inside, a brand new truck that I just got from Husker Auto Group as well. All right, the second thing I noticed or learned this spring that I believe we learned is I expect us to be noticeably more physical. All right, Rhule believes the offensive and defensive lines are better. Now, I'm going to come back to them in just a minute. Butler talked about the physicality being elite. Rhule talked about this is the team I've been waiting for when it comes to having a physical mindset, from a physical perspective. They are emphasizing, and from what I understand, doing much better blocking on the perimeter as well. Blocking from a wide receiver standpoint, a lot of it is want to, okay, emphasizing it as a coach as well. You look at the interior offensive line. I feel pretty good about the interior offensive line. That's not a shot at the tackles. Like I said, I'm going to come back to the D-line and tackles in a minute. The interior offensive line, you got Justin Evans, who the coaches have been ranting and raving about, okay, and for good reason. I've talked about him for a couple of years. Like, keep an eye on this dude. Well, the time might be now, at least according to the coaches and things you hear and see. Henry Letufsky at guard is one of the strongest guys and has been since he walked into that locker room on the entire team. Rocco Spindler just played for a national title and has taken an absolute leadership role. okay, since he got here from Notre Dame. There's other guys to talk about in that room. I can't go through each and every name, but I'll throw some out there. Sam Sledge is another guy to keep your eye on. Competition, depth is important as well. Grant Bricks, who played a lot at offensive tackle this spring, but we had a lot of offensive linemen banged up as well. I mentioned him before, Preston Tamua, other guys as well on that interior offensive line. I feel good about that as far as depth, competition, good starters, okay, going into this football season. Tackling. Year one under Tony White, we tackled exponentially better. Last year, we forced more turnovers because we didn't force a ton of turnovers in year one under Matt Rhule and Tony White. Last year, we forced more turnovers and got more defensive touchdowns, didn't tackle quite as well. I'm hoping we find that happy medium. And if we got to choose one over the other to emphasize, let's emphasize tackling first. That's my personal preference. Get him to the ground, then rip the ball out, okay? But I expect us to be more physical. Been a constant theme you've heard from multiple people throughout the spring. Number three, I believe we have a stacked linebacker core. From an athleticism standpoint, we got Marquez Watson-Trent, who's a former defensive player of the year from the conference he just came from. I know the Big Ten's different, but he's already been mentioned as one of the leaders on the team by Dylan Raiola. So you think about Marquez Watson-Trent, you think about Jacob Bowers, his story, going from a walk-on to a guy that's earned a scholarship. Nebraska linebacker Jacob Bauer is a big spring surprise storyline. He's risen to become a rotational piece on defense and a potential starter. Before walking on at Nebraska, he was set to play rugby in college and attend Army. He'll be on scholarship in the fall. I'm just going to tell you right now, some of the craziest people I've ever met are rugby players. I don't mean crazy as like a disrespectful thing. I mean, I've always thought rugby players could transition over to football as easy as you could possibly do so going from one sport to another. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are similar, but they're basically out there playing nonstop football without pads. So I'm excited. I love this story. I got a heart for walk-on specifically. I know the game of college football is changing, but I'm excited to see what he can do. Rotational piece, potential starter, someone that was very much under the radar. Okay, coming in to spring ball, Vincent Shavers, athleticism through the gills, a guy that played very well in the bowl game when he's been out on the field, has shown what he can do. Excited to see what he can do now that he's going to be on the field more and be able to make even more plays. Willis McGahee, I mentioned earlier, the speed is there, the athleticism is there. There were colleges when he was coming out of high school that wanted him to play running back, okay? And at the fastest man race at the Husker Games, like I said, Ja'Cory Barney won it 40 yards. So it's going to favor smaller guys. The longer the race goes, until you get into a really long part of the race, I would have said that maybe would have favored Harburg with longer legs or whatever the case may be. But like I mentioned earlier, Willis McGahee, he finished either second or third out of everyone who did the race that day. Now, there were some guys who didn't, like Dawson Merritt, I mentioned. He's banged up a little bit. He's a guy who's got a lot of speed. But Willis either finished second or third. He's got a lot of speed and athleticism. He's a guy I think has flown under the radar just a smidge. And I think he's going to be someone to watch. Again, possible starter, rotational piece at worst this fall on that defense to make an impact. All right, Dawson McCullough, he's a guy that's going to move all over. He's a guy that can potentially rush the passer. They've mentioned they want him to rush the passer in the past. That's something that they've said. They haven't talked much about that since. I see him as a chess piece that can be moved all over, just like I mentioned Carter Nelson and Heinrich Haarberg can be those chess pieces moved all over on offense. But Dawson McCullough is a guy who can make an impact and be a part of that linebacker core. And I'm excited to see what a lot of these guys can do in this multiple defense. They might have their hand down. They might be a linebacker. They might be dropping in the coverage. They might be rushing off the edge in certain defenses based on what they're doing and the attacking style of defense that I know Butler wants to run. All right, Williams and Nwaneri. This is a dude physically can make an impact right now. The question is, how ready is it when it comes to develop skill, when it comes to the mental part of the game? He's still a freshman. He's a freshman. So how soon can he make an impact? The sooner he can get on the field and help us, the more fun he's going to be to watch. But he's a guy that can make an impact more and more as the season goes along. Hopefully he's ready as soon as the season starts. Physically, he can make an impact. But he's a guy who can absolutely make big contributions, potentially, to this team this fall. There was no shortage of names when I was trying to come up with names for the linebacker core, which is why I believe this room is stacked. A lot of young guys. Marquez Watson-Trent's got the most experience. Okay, so he's going to be a core leader in that linebacker core. No pun intended. But a lot of talent, potential starters, depth, rotational pieces, guys that can move all over the place. Dawson Merritt's going to be back and healthy in the fall. Christian Jones already kind of looks like a beast. I saw him this spring. The dude looks like he's ready to play right now. We'll see how much he contributes right out the gate to start the season. The bonus, 3 questions for you fine folks at home. The three biggest question marks I still have going forward when it comes to Nebraska football this season and in the fall. But before I do that, I want to give a shout out to Allen Capital Group. Check them out at allencapgroup.com. That's ALLENCAP group.com. They have next level solutions for next level needs. They have offices in Grand Island, Omaha, Scottsbluff, and Ogallala. As I've mentioned, they've done my family's finances for over 10 years because they do a great job. They're trustworthy, they're knowledgeable, they're genuine, and they're caring. Okay, again, check them out at allencapgroup.com. They've had some people pick up the phone and call them because they heard me talking about them on the show, and those people that have joined them as new clients have been very, very happy so far. All right, here are my three biggest questions going forward. And it's interesting because we've heard the offensive line is a highlight of the spring. We're going to have one of the best defensive lines around. Okay. One of my three biggest question marks is still the trenches. And I bring it back to the offensive tackles, not because I don't think they're good. They're just not as proven yet as some of the interior offensive linemen are. So I'm curious to see, because they played well this spring, and I'm curious to see how they factor in the fall. We had a lot of offensive linemen out this spring because I'm kind of curious just to see what the offensive line looks like when all those guys who missed this spring are back in the fall. So that's part of it. But I believe we have at least two potential Sunday players in this offensive line at the offensive tackle spot right now. You look at Gunnar Gatula, a guy who stepped in due to injuries as a freshman and played very admirably. I absolutely believe he's one of our 5 best offensive linemen based on how he comes back, how he returns, and how these offensive line battles go. Hopefully he's 100%, sooner rather than later. I believe he's going to be ready for the fall, but this is a guy who could potentially be playing on Sundays. But what's his consistency like? I've said on the Adam Carriker show on the ticket several times, consistency is the hardest thing to find. It's not hard to be good once in a while. It's not hard to show up every once in a while when you feel good. Anybody can do that. Okay, and it's not just Gunnar, it's everybody. Who can find consistency? You think back to Nebraska basketball. Man, we beat more ranked teams than we've ever beaten in a season. But we didn't make the Big Ten tournament. Consistency. Then we go out and win the crown, and we show what we can do. You think back, we're in the middle of Nebraska baseball right now. This was a team that won the Big Ten championship last year, had a bunch of guys coming back, preseason ranked, preseason supposed to play Oregon in the Big Ten championship. And they've had some big wins, from winning the series from Oregon State to beating Vanderbilt right out the gate to start the season. Their overall win-loss record, though, is not where anybody would want it to be, including the coaches and guys on that team. It's not a dig. I guarantee they want it to be better. It's consistency, finding that consistency. We need that at offensive tackle. Being good every once in a while is not that hard. If you got some talent, you put in some work, it's not that hard. Being consistent, day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, when you're beat up, when you don't feel like it, when you feel like crap. That's the hardest part. Can we find that? Because we've got guys with talent. We've got guys at that offensive tackle spot. We've got guys who've stepped up in the spring who can challenge as starters. Elijah Prichett, Gunnar Gatula, they're projected starters. But Tyler Canuck, other guys, Grant Bricks has been playing at tackle. Does he go back to guard? I'm curious to see what this offensive line looks like when everyone comes back, and I'm curious to see who steps up at that offensive tackle spot. When you think about Elijah Prichett, dude's huge. Okay, and he's already projected by some people to be the number 21 overall pick in the NFL draft next year, projected by the Houston Texans. Obviously, this is way too early projections, but we'll put that up on the screen. Nebraska's Elijah Prichett to Houston Texans at number 21 overall in CBS Sports. Way too early 2026 NFL mock draft. The talent is there. The ability is there. Will the consistency be? All right, you look at the defensive line. 7 total starts from everyone in that room combined coming into this season on a D1 level. 6 of those belong to Cam Lenhart, which I've mentioned before. Now, you look at the guys in that room. Keona Davis looks like the real deal physically right now. He has transformed himself physically. Riley Van Poppel looks very impressive. Elijah Judy looks ready to start and be a very good nose guard right now, based on what we've seen this offseason. He's the only senior in that entire room, by the way. He looks ready to step up. I'm excited to see what Van Poppel can do. Does Williams and worry? Does he put his hand in the dirt much? Okay, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Jalen George, a transfer, all right, who started at a lower level school, all conference type player, coming here. Hopefully he can make an impact. All right, and he'll be back and healthy in the fall. Very talented. The athleticism, the talent, it's there. Let me be very, very clear. They're just unproven as a whole at this point. Unproven doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you haven't done it yet. This is their opportunity. And can they play consistently day in and day out, down in and down out? I don't question how these D linemen look. I don't question their athleticism or ability. We had a lot of seniors and guys who started a lot of games last year. those guys are gone. The entire starting rotation for the defensive line is gone here at Nebraska, as most of you know. Opportunities are here for them to now show and prove what they can do. Can't wait to see what happens. So I'd be curious to see, because you need 3 backs that you can trust. When you look at the backs beyond Emmett Johnson and Quinn Ewers, who the coaches clearly love and trust, you need a third one in case somebody gets tired, somebody misses a game, somebody gets banged up, because you always want a 2-back rotation in a game, so it means you need a third one you can trust in case somebody's out. There's a lot of talented young backs in that room. Connor Booth, Mekhi Nelson, other people. Okay, again, I'm not going to try to list everybody, but you need 3 running backs in that room that you can completely trust. And number 3, Offseason Kool-Aid is fun, ladies and gentlemen. It's a healthy part of a steady offseason diet that every Nebraska fan needs to have. In all seriousness, I like the coaching moves we've done this offseason. I like the personnel moves. You can also talk, hey, look at Rhule's record versus ranked teams. Look at Nebraska's recent record in one-score games. We can talk year 3 jump. We can talk a lot of this stuff. My biggest question, how do we actually put it all together on game day? And obviously, we won't know the answer to that for a while. Let's go through some of these pictures that we're going to throw up on the screen here real quick. Lincoln Arneal. Attendance for the Supernovas final home match of the year was 11,204 for the season. Omaha averaged 10,925 across 14 home matches. 9 matches exceeded 10,000 fans. That is awesome. I just thought this was crazy. Quinn Ewers turned down $8 million from NIL money to enter the draft, and now he's going to make $800,000. That is per year, by the way, so it's a little skewed. But man, one of the things I don't hate about NIL is I think it does try to keep college football players in college longer rather than going to the NFL earlier. One last final shout out to Ty Robinson. Here are some of his stats, his career stats at Nebraska. 134 tackles, 26.5 tackles for loss, 12 sacks, 12 PBUs. Good luck to Thomas, all right, 7th round draft pick in his endeavors in the NFL. Good luck to Ty. Good luck to everyone who signed free agent deals as well in the NFL that played at Nebraska at some point in their careers. All right, our fan questions of the day are brought to you by Husker Auto Group. Again, check them out at huskerautomotive.com. Also, carrikerchronicles.com. Year-round Nebraska sports coverage. It's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true. It's just science. 3 questions, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know your answer in the comments below. Number 1, what's your single biggest takeaway from what we learned this spring? What's the biggest thing you believe we learned this spring that matters the most to you? Number 2, what's your single biggest question mark you still have going forward into next season? And number 3, are you going to continue to watch the Carriker Chronicles each and every Tuesday all the way up until August? Our schedule changes then, but each and every Tuesday up until August. Let me know, yes or no. Go Big Red, and always remember to throw the ball.